Luka Doncic, which I think you got Luka as well. Yeah, Jesus Christ.
We didn't compare notes.
I mean, Jordan, they're going to be riding that scooter together. Fucking Jordan Poole and Kyle Kuzma.
Welcome to Rogue Bogues, the basketball podcast, all your news on all things NBA and NBL, and the number one ranked Australian-based basketball show, Pro. So I think I'm carrying that side of things. But
who's the competition, Bogues? Is there competition for that?
Probably not, but that's beside the point.
Okay.
No, there's a few basketball shows. No, actually, there's a fair few Australian-based basketball shows. I stand corrected. There is a fair few out there. I know Chris Anstey does one. I know a few other people do some. I know there's some sports betting agencies that do some, but we are number one Australian based, so good thing. Just started from my basement, from Pro's basement, sorry, in my garage, and we're doing good things, Pro. And by the way, Mystic Mike, welcome to the show.
Bogues, it's been a great week, man.
Been a great week. They love the bold dome rubbing. That was a big hit with social media. Even Jock,
I did.
Lawndale even commented on it. So you got
fuck Lawndale. What the fuck does he got to do?
Shaved his head. He looks like you, actually.
Dude, he looks like he lost a fucking bet. Like mine was done because I have to. He doesn't have to do it. That mullet to that fucking dome he's got.
I think he watched the Beckham documentary when Beckham shaved his head. So we were chatting about the Beckham documentary, and then a week later he shaved his head. So maybe he was peer pressured onto that. But let's get into it. Got a lot to get through. We'll go through the contract extensions in a second. But no real big news out of this week. The biggest news was Adrian Griffin and Terry Stotts getting into it, Pro, and Stotts basically walking away. We've both worked with Terry. I worked with him my rookie year and second year. You've worked with him before. You know him. Pretty mild-mannered guy, like not really confrontational. He'll arc up every now and then, but he's more of a mellow-spoken coach. You ever rarely see him lose his temper. Adrian Griffin was kind of the same. When I played with him one season in Milwaukee, he was our veteran with Scott Skiles. Really soft-spoken, kind of. So to see these two guys go at it was very interesting. I text you about it. You have a bit more of a background with the Athletic article that came out, and feel free to relay what went down.
Well, from what I read, and again, if you don't know, if you're not there, you can only go from what you read in sources and things like that. So just reading from the Athletic, it said that everything was sort of good, and then they had this shoot-around where after the shoot-around, Griffin wanted to huddle up the coaches, and Stotts wanted to go through the offense with a group of players. And he went to he sort of walked opposite direction of the huddle, this huddle that the coaches are having. And Griffin called him over, and he sort of hushed, I don't know if he waved him off or whatever, just wanted to do his thing. And, then Griffin sort of, said it a little bit more intently that, hey, huddle, what have you. And that was really it. And they had some type of an animated talk at some point. And yeah, he just abruptly left. So that's sort of what the Athletic said. Didn't say anything that they came to blows or it was going that way the whole time. There was no bad blood in there. Just, but what Griffin said when asked about it, he's like, well, ask Terry, he gave him the NBA, oh, everything's great. He's a great guy. He went down there, but then he was like, well, you're going to have to ask Terry if you want to know why he left. So obviously there was something. It wasn't just oh, I'm leaving. There has to be something. And yeah, I mean, at least that's what the story said.
I didn't follow the hiring. Was Terry Stotts organizational hiring?
I think they wanted somebody on his staff because besides Joe Prunty, they don't really have a guy that's a really experienced coach, on the staff. So that's really been, either in the first chair or second in command. So I think they just wanted a veteran leader to help Griffin. And, he was probably the best one out there, for sure.
Yeah. So my Mystic Mike, Pro, is that, exactly that. He wasn't hired by Adrian Griffin. We've seen these circumstances before. I saw this with Mark Jackson and Michael Malone. Mark Jackson came out of the commentary booth. The organization said, you've never coached. We're going to get you the best assistant out there. Mark Jackson felt like, if I don't do well, this guy's going to knife me and take my job, and the organization's backing him. This smells a little bit like that. It smells a little bit that Milwaukee were like, look, we're hiring Adrian Griffin, who's never head coach before. We're taking a risk and a punt. We need some security or insurance. We have this guy who's been an NBA coach now for a long, long time. He's been an assistant. He's been all around the league. He's been in the NBA for 30 years now, probably, roughly. And we bring him in, and if shit hits the fan with Griffin, we've got a great replacement just sitting there. Head coaches that don't like that necessarily because they feel like this is not my hire. This is clearly an organizational hire. If we, for instance, start 10-10 or 8-12, is he going to have my back because I didn't hire him, or is he going to be running to the organization saying he's doing X, Y, Z wrong, and then I'm fired by All-Star break? That's what I think's going on with this, and I think there was probably a bit of tension from Griffin's side on that. Terry, on the flip side, was a head coach the last, 10 years? 8 years, 10 years in Portland. He's used to running the show, so now he's in an adjustment period. So I think those two have just clashed based on that, and I think that's why it's gone the direction it has. That would be my prediction, bro.
Yeah, I mean, everything you said is spot on as far as like, I bet the organization strongly recommended, that you hire Terry, in that position. And I've been around Stotts at the GERD camp in the summer, in Vegas, in Summer League. He's been around. Our guys loved him in Dallas. I never worked with him officially when I was in Dallas, but he was always around. He was always a good guy. I really like him and respect him as a coach. If I had a guess, Bogues, I would probably say it's more on the second thing that you said. I think it's really hard for a coach that's been a head coach for a long time. Not the coaches like if Frank Vogel or Jason Kidd that were coaches for a few years and then got fired and then got hired as assistants. I think that would be easier to sort of do. I don't think Vogel ever did that, but he had short stints as head coaches. But like a Jason Kidd when he went back to being assistant. I think guys that have been head coaches for just a little bit, I think that it's a much easier transition than getting fired, then becoming an assistant to sort of work back up, rather than a guy that's had a lot of success, has been a head coach. I think Terry was a head coach probably 14 or 15 years total with the Bucks, Atlanta, and in Portland. So I think when you then back into that second seat and you're not in charge, I think that in my opinion, it's hard. I haven't heard it. I have no intel on the situation, but I'm just trying to use logic with it. I think it's really tough, and to try to go back to that, and maybe they're doing some things, that he didn't like, or he just, you were in charge so long, you're just used to getting your way most of the time with that stuff. And I think also, you've never coached, but you've had these days. I've had him as a coach where you're just not feeling it that day, and somebody says something, especially somebody that's above you says something that's sort of like, sound, even if it's not intent to be that way, sounds like embarrassing or condescending, and you're like, I'm not fucking dealing with this shit today, and just said, fuck it, I'm out. Like he probably had feelings before that were like, all right, 1 foot in, 1 foot out. It probably got to that. Something must have sort of got him to that point, and then that probably just put him over the edge. I know when you try to get something done and you just want to get it done, he probably thought a huddle after practice wasn't all that important. Just guessing, of course. And then, then when they fucking second and third, hey, come over to the huddle, and he's trying to get the offense deal done and probably just struggling, trying to, get back to being an assistant. I just think it was like a perfect storm. And he was like, fuck it, I'm out. I've heard nothing but good things with Adrian. I'm best friends with his former agent when he was a player. I've been around Adrian, been around Terry. I don't think either one of these guys are bad dudes or confrontational. I just think that, maybe bad fit. I have no idea. Yeah,
it's an interesting one. We'll see how it goes. But these things do happen, and I've seen this play out on a few different teams. And Malone was one that ended up getting pushed out of Golden State because of those very reasons, in my belief, and has ended up going on to much bigger and better things. Obviously, a championship winning coach, bringing the first one there to Denver. He'll be a legend in in Denver, in that organization and city forever. Few injuries. Steven Adams out for the season, bro. This was an interesting one. He had an issue with his, I think, MCL or PCL in February or March. So I don't know why they've waited so long. I think they did some PRP injections and some different rehab things, maybe thinking that it wasn't as bad as it was. They've rolled the dice, and now he's had the surgery in October. So we'll be out for the season, 6 to 9 months. If he would have done that in February, potentially he's back by, January, February. So an interesting one, considering that Clark, their, starting / backup big, tore his Achilles in March. So he's probably not back. Achilles usually is a full 12-month ride. Isn't back to right before the playoffs, which is the worst possible time to come back. If you get some games under your belt, they're in some trouble there. I mean, they're going to have to go super small at times with, and they have the squad to do a small ball lineup. In my opinion, you can put Dejan Jackson at the 5, but they're going to have to find something on the open market, bro. I don't know what there is, but they're two big outs for them as far as trying to get, especially getting through the West with the likes of Jokic and whatnot floating around there.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate. Adams is one of my favorite centers to watch. He's a great dude, great teammate, tough guy. If there was a tough man contest and like a battle royal of every player in the NBA, he might be the last guy standing. And it's unfortunate. I know he had some issues last year. He only played 42 games, and he's had some health the last few years, like up and down. And they probably just said, "Hey, let's do non-surgical, the injections. Let's see if it works." And maybe they were, maybe they had high hopes for it, and then it shocked me when I read that this morning, because he's such a good player, man. He's such a great player to watch. Just just the way he sort of conducts business. So, and for them, like you said, they're gonna go really small. I would probably think that Dwight Howard and Dwayne Dedmon will be two guys. Wayne Gabriel just got cut by the Celtics today. So those are probably 3 names to take a look at and to keep on, because they don't really have it. I mean, Kenneth Lofton Jr. is like fucking 340 fucking pounds. And he ain't playing center,
Aldama is their next biggest guy, who's 6'11", but he's 224, so he's very light. As far as a big, burly, strong guy, there's not a whole lot there. Tillman Senior, 6'8", 245. Yeah, I think Dwight would be a great pickup for them. I really do. I mean, a solid body, really good lob threat, physical, could potentially come in and start. Be one of those lineups where you start the big lineup and you pull him out, within maybe 6 minutes left in the first, and then go to a smaller lineup, but you've got some beef there, you've got some fouls, you've got some early rim protection. He'd actually fit in quite well with his athleticism there. I know he's getting older, but wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. Dedmon also a very good option, so they'll have to go to the open market and find something quickly. And even beyond that, there's not a lot of depth. So if Triple J, Jaron Jackson gets in foul trouble, what do you do then? Then your lineups are all out of whack. So they're in some trouble, and they will have to be firing all cylinders with that small ball lineup and coaching wise to get through. But sucks for the Grizzlies. Moving on, what do you have for us? You got some stuff this week on some contract extensions, some declines and opt-ins, and some crazy numbers being floated about.
Yeah, so let's just talk about. I mean, maybe I'll just go through the list. There's 3 categories we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about rookie extensions. We're going to talk about vet extensions over the summer, just 5 each. We're not going to go nuts with it. And then players that were eligible, mostly rookie extension guys from the class from a few years back. And then we have 1 guy that wasn't on that list out of that 5. So we're just going to go real quick, Bogues. You just tell me and we'll talk about it quickly. But LaMelo Ball, first one, 5 years, $217 million. What do you think about that?
Oh, no, Charlotte have to do it. They can't really do much else. I mean, they struggle to keep stars. They're not going to get tier 1 free agents. LaMelo is getting better and better, and he's a fun player to watch. So worst case, your team sucks, he'll sell some tickets still, even if your record is bad. Yeah,
I agree. I mean, I'm not a huge LaMelo Ball fan, but he scores. He's got flair. He's the only guy that you could really sell there. Gordon Hayward's going to be on his way out. I think Terry Rozier will be on his way out. I think that Brandon Miller, the guy they just drafted from Alabama, he's a very interesting player.
Looks solid,
Nick
yeah.
Smith, another draft pick that they drafted from Arkansas, I think he's going to be good. But I think what LaMelo, look, 23 8 and 6 last year, scores. He's the only one guy right now that you could sort of hang your hat on about, all right, this is our guy going forward. And look, most of these extensions, most of these rookies are going to sign their rookie extension. It's not going to be any tomfoolery with it, but I think it was a no-brainer. The second one, Anthony Edwards, 5 years, again, $217 million roughly from Minnesota. What do you think about that?
Oh, it's a no-brainer. We don't even need to discuss that, do we? He's the future. We discussed it with the Minnesota, got into Minnesota a little bit last week. But yeah, he's the future of that franchise, and Towns is kind of 1 foot in, 1 foot out at the moment. But yeah, he's and he grew. Like, he was really good, I think, in spurts for Team USA, becoming that big shot maker for him when they needed a bucket, and that's just a no-brainer to me.
Yeah, I mean, I have him as the 11th best player in the league. I mean, 25, 6 and 4. He's really good. He's really starting to mature, and yeah, no doubt it's a no-brainer, max extension. He's the future of that organization. Towns is probably going to be on his way out soon, and he's a guy that you're going to build your team around. He could score, he could guard, he's got size, he's got strength, he's athletic. I think he's growing up from his rookie year on. Only 6'4", which is incredible because he looks 6'6". He plays like he's 6'6", but he's listed as 6'4". But for what he could do, I think he's a really good player. Tyrese Halliburton, 5 years, 217. What do you think about Tyrese?
I like him. I mean, he was part of the trade where one of the rare SAC 1 and Indiana 1 trades. You don't see that too often. But look, funnily enough, this whole list, as we're going through them, they're all small market teams. And I think it just shows these small market teams have to extend rookies and probably overpay at times. But I think it's a pretty much a fair deal when you look at what other guys in his range are getting, and he's up there with Ball and Edwards as far as where he's sitting. Some would argue Edwards is a tier above, but I think he's very solid. Was he top 2, top 3 in the league in assists? 3 ball's gotten much better. Can show scoring flashes at times, and I think they'll be better this season. They'll be a bit more competitive than they were last season, pending health. So I think this was also a good one.
Yeah, I think it's a really good one. I mean, 20, 10, and 4. I mean, for a small market team, Indiana, I think he's thriving under Carlisle's offense, and he's really doing well for the team. And obviously, the number one option going forward, trying to build a team around him. And he's gotten a lot better. He works out with a trainer, Drew Hanlon, a good friend of mine, and Drew always speaks highly of him. I think he's good. He's a really good player. I got him number 6 at point guards, 25th overall in the league. All-star level talent, like you said, great trade for both teams with Sabonis going to Sacramento and him going to Indiana. I think he's going to be really good, and it's a no-brainer for Indiana. Like you said, this is all great stuff. With these small market teams. Look, again, the rookie extension, everyone's going to sign. I think Porzingis might be the only rookie that I've heard of in a while that didn't sign the extension with the team that he played for. Not counting Wiggins, who never really played for the original draft team. He got traded before it even started. But, Porzingis is the only player that I heard of, first round pick, that didn't sign the extension. It's the third contract is when, by the time the third contract signed, that's when guys sort of move on. Although the only thing about being moved, you can't be eligible for the Supermax extension. You got to be all one team throughout. Desmond Bane, Bogues. This one surprised me a little bit with the number, not necessarily him, signing, but 5 years, $197 million. What do you think about that?
Yeah, you look at it and it jumps off the page, that's for sure. But I'm just looking up his numbers, and they're up there with those other guys. His numbers are not horrible. He's one of the most improved players from a couple of years ago, in my opinion. He was 9 points. 3 rebounds in 2021 and then jumped up to 18. Last season, he was 21.5 points a night with 5 rebounds and 4.4 assists, shooting 40% from 3. So his numbers are a little bit below those other 3 guys we mentioned, but they're in the realm. So, and they're a little bit unders. And once again, what's Memphis going to do if they lose him? They can't afford to bring in someone similar in free agency. He seems like a no-nonsense type of guy. You don't really hear anything negative from him. Seems like he plays hard. Kind of a Kyle Lowry type body, physical, strong, can guard, but the 40% from three gets him over the line. And the seasons before that, he was even higher. You know, he was 43% in both those seasons before. So it wasn't an anomaly that he was shooting the ball that way. But I think a good one for Memphis. I think they overpay by 10, 15, 20 million. Who can say? But they have to do that. It's all five of these teams that we mentioned. They got to do that to keep this kind of talent at home.
Yeah, I mean that's what you got to do. It's a lot easier to re-sign and develop your rookie and re-sign into a second contract versus moving somebody and then trying to acquire something else, you know, through using your salary cap and things. So it's a no-brainer. You know, obviously Morant's their guy going forward. Jaren Jackson, those are probably the sort of the bookends of, you know, players you're building around. And then, you know, guys like Desmond Bane and Marcus Smart now sort of fit in with the, you know, shooter, obviously with Bane. And then Marcus Smart, the gritty defender that could handle the ball and be your, you know, your locker room leader as well. So they really need to stockpile. You know, not a lot of players want to go to Memphis in free agency. It just is what it is. It's not a knock on them. It's just what they're dealing with. So re-signing a guy and overpaying, you know, like I said before, I remember asking a Celtics official way back before I even worked with the team, they signed Antoine Walker to a max extension. And at that point, the money wasn't even close to what it is now, but it was like $14 million a year for like 5 years or so. And I asked this official, I said, you know, that took me by surprise, maxing him out, you know, because it was sort of a new thing. And he was like, look, how are you going to replace him? We're not a championship level team, but how are you going to replace a guy like that? You know, if you lose him in free agency and you do sign and trade or whatever, you're not going to get much back for him. And now you're not going to get Antoine Walker back in the draft. You're not going to draft a guy like that right off the bat. If you are, it's going to take some time to develop. You don't have the salary cap number to go and get a guy that's worth what he is, especially if you could go over the cap to sign re-sign your own free agent. So Desmond Bane, look, like you said, you know, he's averaging 21 and 5. He's a marksman. He makes about 3 threes a game. They need to stretch the floor and spread it out and have him shoot it. He's limited in some ways, but you know, he can really shoot. He's tough. He's a gritty type of player. And they need him because, again, you lose him. What are you going to replace him with? You really can't do that in free agency. They don't have the money to do that. So I think it's, you know, with Morant and Jackson making the money they make, you know, I think it's going to be really hard to bring in a guy for 30, 35 million. You got to sign your guy. And I think Bane was a good deal. And Vassell from San Antonio, 5 years, 135, Devin Vassell. So 5 years, 135 million. Do you know much about him, Bogues? Do you watch him much?
A little bit, not a whole lot, but he's a similar kind of trajectory from when he came to the league as Bane, numbers wise. You know, averaged 5.5 points his first season, jumped to 12.3 the season after with 4 rebounds and 2 assists, and then last season he was 18.5 points, you know, 4 rebounds, 3.5 assists, and shooting from three was 38, almost 39% from three. So, yeah, I mean, when you look at what Bane got, this makes sense. Spurs, once again, probably need to overpay talent to try and stay there. They're going to be good probably in 2 or 3 years, I think, with the young talent they're building around Wemby and whatnot, and just how freakish Wemby is and, you know, things that he's done these last couple of preseason games. So this one also, you know, I think all 5 of them, I think, were no-brainers when you really look at the small markets. Who else, like you said, who else are you going to get? Who are you going to get to replace it? Some of these small markets need to overpay on the rookie extension because they can't run the risk of them going to restricted free agency or even, you know, the year after taking the 1 year and then going to unrestricted. You just don't want to take that risk. If you like your guy, you're a small market, the reality is you probably get overpaid. Some of these guys get overpaid by 5, 10, 20 million in the life of their deal, probably, but you have to do it. Yeah,
it's interesting. I really like Vassell. I think he's a very good player. I think he's a borderline second option on the team. You know, I think for them, you know, obviously Victor's going to be a guy they eventually, you know, number one now. In reality, not number one yet, but like he'll get there. but Vassell is a perfect like number 2, number 3 guy to have with a franchise player like a Wembanyama, right? And I think that having him, he's a shooter, he's got a decent size. He doesn't have to have the ball in his hands all the time to be effective. You got to pay somebody there, and Victor's going to be the best contract in the league right now. The guy's people are saying he's going to be Michael Jordan on steroids, right? And you can agree or disagree or what have you, but he's still under a rookie deal. And how he changes the game and the things that he does, it's really good to have guys like Vassell that's getting the money that he does, that can be steady, been an NBA player, knows what he's doing, can score, can shoot the ball, coachable kid. And, you have other guys like Keldon Johnson, Trey Jones. So I think Keldon Johnson's sort of the odd man out on this. I think they should move Keldon. No offense to Keldon, but, I just think that like Victor's a guy going forward. Devon's a very good piece to have. They just re-signed Zach Collins, actually 2 years, $35 million. He's a decent piece, but do you see what they're doing, Bogues? At least in the preseason. I don't know if they're going to do this during the year, but Sochan is playing point guard for them. Trey Jones is coming off the bench. Sochan, who's like Dennis Rodman, he's running point. It's pretty interesting to watch, that positionless basketball stuff. It's funny with Pop, like, trying to like stay old school, but now doing something a little different, like Don Nelson style, playing the point forward, as their point guard. So, but anyway, I like the Vassell deal. I think it's good. Like you said, they need guys to stay and sort of do what they're doing. And, Victor's going to attract some people to come, but having a guy that, you developed, signing him for a good contract is pretty good for business.
Go for it. Next one.
All right. Vet extensions, Bogues. We don't have to talk about it if you don't want to. We could say 2 words about it. It's a little different now. These are the vet guys. Jaylen Brown, 5 years, $303. It's a lot of money, man. But I mean, obviously, for what he brings to the table, all NBA player and, all-star level. What do you think about the Jaylen Brown extension?
Well, makes him the highest paid player in the league, right? Doesn't it? Yeah.
Right now.
Yeah, as of today. I don't like it on that merit. I don't think he's worth the hype. I don't think he's the best player in the league, but it's the cap situation. I don't know the intricacies of it, but it's not like for like, right? If he walks away, you can't then spend $303 million on bringing someone in. And that's the issue with this. So Boston kind of, to your Antoine Walker example, you kind of have to do it. But do I like him at, what is that per year, 60 million? Like, no, I don't. But I think, he's an all NBA player and he's an integral part of him, but I don't think he's the best player on their team. I don't. Yeah. So I don't love it from a numbers point of view, but I understand the method of the madness.
Bogues, $31 million this year, and then it kicks in 52.4. 56.6.
Oh, the end of this deal is going to be a nightmare. Yeah, I can already tell.
60.7. Don't have any sharp objects around you. 65 million in 2027-28, and the last one caps out. And I don't think there's any player option, but I could be mistaken. 69 million at the last year of the deal. Crazy.
Yeah, I just don't. It's tough. And they're investing a lot of him being the man for them for a long time. And I think. Has he scratched his ceiling, pro, from the past couple of years? Do you see his game? He does travel a lot, does struggles to dribble at times for an all-NBA guy, doesn't like going left, but he's very good at what he does. But do you see improvement for him?
I don't see a huge improvement. He can handle the ball better. I really do believe this, Bogues, and you and I could have a discussion about this maybe on a later pod or even today. But I think after your rookie deal, you are who you are. Not a lot of players after year 5 make these huge jumps in their game. I think by the 5th year in the NBA, you are who you are. You can make subtle improvements, but no one really makes that huge jump. I think that he could, like we talked about, like Rudy Gobert having a big man coach that could teach him one post move last week. Talked about Giannis getting a shooting coach instead of working with Olajuwon. Not that I care if he works with Olajuwon or not, but Jaylen Brown needs to be able to handle the ball because he can guard people. He's an okay shot maker. He shoots 34% from 3, but he can really score. He's got good size. He's smart, but he really needs to be able to handle the ball better. And, in today's game, you got to be able to handle it. And I don't see him making a huge jump, but these guys are smart, Bogues. Like, I remember Michael Conley It had, it was open in free agency. It was like 2000 and I'm going to say like 15 or 16. And he was the highest paid player in NBA history. It's just how it goes. Like, you take
Timing.
the salary cap.
It's all about timing.
Be out. Yeah, it's the timing of
Right
it. And that's
place,
why
right
Giannis
time.
isn't signing his.
Mhm.
So you're just waiting for this new CBA to kick in, the new TV money, things go up and you get a percentage of the cap. So yeah, it's a lot of money, but they need to do it because without him, they're not a championship contender, in my opinion. They need him and they can't really replace him easily. So different.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Bogues. Anthony Davis, 3 years, 187.
Yeah, no brainer. I mean, we don't have to get into this one, I don't think, but they've obviously limited the years based on injury, I would assume. But yeah, no brainer. Integral part of their success, just going to stay healthy.
No, yeah. LeBron's getting older. They don't really have an asset right now that's going to take them past LeBron. And I don't even know when LeBron's going to play, until he's, a potato in a jar or something. Like he's going to play till he's 80, but they need somebody going forward, sign him. It's a no-brainer. They can't replace him. Without question. Sabonis, 4 years, 176 in Sacramento. Probably another no-brainer, but what do you think?
Yeah, Sacramento, hard to bring in premier free agents. I think he was very good for them last season. Go back to the Halliburton Sabonis trade that we spoke about earlier. They both won that deal, in my opinion. It was one of the rare ones where you see both come out winners, both got production from their main assets. And I think he wants to be there. I think, getting someone a sack that doesn't mind being there. He's a Euro guy, obviously, so I don't think he's enamored by having to be in New York or LA or one of those cities or Miami. And he's happy there. And if you've got a happy, he's probably a second-tier star that wants to stay there, I think you sign on the dotted line. No dramas with him neither. Stays out of trouble for the most part. Seems like a decent teammate, so I like it.
Yeah, me too. I mean, look, I think there's only small windows in most of these teams have, as far as like where they can go. Last year, they won 48 games, ended early in the playoffs, but they got a good group. They got a good group. He's the anchor of it, him and Fox. And I think that just signing him, it's an easy sign. He fits in there. They run through him. They treat him really well. 176 for 4 years is a no-brainer for him. DeJounte Murray, 4 years, 111 million from Atlanta.
Once Collins was gone, they made that trade obviously as well. I think it was always going to happen that they'll plan on keeping him long term. Yet to be seen whether it all works with him and Trey playing together, and I guess you're playing Trey off the ball a little bit more, and that balance they still need to figure out. They didn't figure it out quite as well as I thought last season. They were decent, but Quinn, he's got his work cut out for him trying to get this squad together to try and win. So they kind of had to do it after the trade they made and letting go of Collins. So it makes sense that they would extend.
Yeah, let's just think about it, Bogues. The average salary of the NBA is about $10 million. You're getting a guy essentially for $22, $23 million a year, starting combo guard that could put up 20 and 5 and 6. I mean, why not, right? And look, they got, after making the trade, they need somebody to go with young. They need some type of identity. We talked about it with the Vasil signing, not necessarily he's not going to be your best player, but he's a guy that's going to put up numbers you're going to need. And they need the assets they can get. They lost Collins. They didn't really get anything back for him. So going forward, they need something. And they made that deal with San Antonio, giving up a lot of draft capital to San Antonio in the future to grab him. So I think it's a no-brainer to sign him. Yep. All right, Bogues. So here's 5 guys
Josh Hart
didn't get. Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize.
Oh, good.
Josh Hart, 4 years, 80 million, New York.
Yeah, good. I think it was good for them, but just his journey. I mean, look, he bounced around the league for a little bit. Lakers for 2 seasons, Pelicans for 3, then Blazers. Trying to find a role. What is he? Is he a is he a 2? Is he a 3? Can you play him in small ball lineups? Very good rebounder for his size, and I think he was just one of the guys the Knicks had that just did whatever he had to do. Played hard, loose balls, rebounds. I think his three ball was decent with the Knicks. It was too, 51.9% with the Knicks, which is crazy. Obviously a small amount of games, 25 games. But I like it. I think it's, considering what you just said about other guys getting 30, 40 million, he's at 20. It's a reasonable deal. he fits in well with what they're doing. Thibs would love him, I assume. That's why they've done it. And I think it's good to see him now, get some familiarity with the team and hopefully stick long term.
Yeah, and they need guys like that. Look, they've got two guys, 2.5 guys that need the ball in their hand at all times. Look, Brunson's their guy going forward, but you got Julius Randle as well that needs the ball. RJ Barrett has the ball in his hands a lot. You need a guy that's going to guard. He's going to make open shots, that doesn't need the ball in his hands, that could keep your spacing going. That's a good leader. It's a high character guy. And to sign him, for $20 million a year, to me, it's a no-brainer having a guy like that in your locker room. Having a guy on the floor is tough that you could trust, that could play. That's tough enough to play with. With Tibbs is, it's really important. And then, how many Villanova guys can you have on one fucking roster now? They got Brunson, they got Hart, they got DiVincenzo. So, they're trying to get the whole starting five from that national championship team from a couple of years ago. But I think it's a good signing. It's a solid signing. It's good cap management for the Knicks for sure.
All right, folks. Five extensions, right, bro?
Yep. 5 guys that were eligible. I think the eligibility, Bogues, is until the regular season starts. I could be wrong on that, but you have that for that rookie extension. If you don't sign it, you become a restricted free agent at the end of the year, which they have the right to match any deal. You just not sign long term. So I don't think it really affects what you're doing. Because they can match any offer. They could offer you whatever next summer. So when free agency starts. So Tyrese Maxey, first guy on the list, Bogues. What do you think?
He must be waiting for the max, right? That's what I think the breakdown's probably around. He probably wants max and knows that probably other teams out there would potentially give it to him if he could go elsewhere. So that's what the holdout's about. Look, with James leaving, you probably got to do it, right? I don't know what Philly's waiting for from that aspect of things, but I think as of their cap right now, James is going to move on regardless, whether it's now or in the off season. You got to probably do it to keep your talent. So I don't know what the rundown is of why it's stalled out, but I would assume if they're nickel and diming, unless there's a huge difference in where they're at. But he's when you look at those other names that are getting some of the money thrown about, I think it's pretty reasonable to extend him. But yeah, Philly think otherwise.
Yeah, their cap is at 175. They got a lot of heavy hitters in the top 3 of their salary right now. They got Embiid, they got Harris, they got Harden. Embiid at 47, Harris at 39, Harden at 35. So look, there's no real rush on this. I think it looks good to extend your guys when they're eligible to do so. But you could still give them the money they want. They're restricted, so it's not like you're going to lose them. It's not like they're going to become real, true free agents. Again, the numbers are so low on rookies that said no to their rookie extension, or just said, all right, to hell with it. I'm going to go. I'm going to be restricted next year. I'll sign the qualifying offer and become unrestricted after that. No one does that. So he'll sign it. I think it's just, for one reason or another, they didn't sign it. And, maybe they just want to hold off because it doesn't go on this year's books anyway. Maxey makes 4.3 with his rookie deal this year, and then it'll kick in next year. So I think those other deals are 5 years, 217, those rookie extensions. So that's probably what he'll sign. But I don't think they're going to lose him. He's their best player going forward besides Embiid. So, Harris gets off the books. So I think they're just gonna wait on it and they'll be fine. I don't think anything big on that. All right. Some smaller names, Bogues. Josh Green, obviously an Aussie we'll talk about later, in the pod, but he didn't get his rookie extension eligible for the Mavericks.
Yeah. Okay year last season. He shot the ball much better. He was at just over 40% from 3, 9 points a night, 3 rebounds, 1.7 assists. Still, health has been an issue for him throughout. 39 games his rookie year, 67 and then 60, so probably needs to get a bit more healthy. He's had a couple of injuries that were just random, to get a hand injury at one point or a wrist or something like that. So probably just needs to show some health a little bit. I guess Dallas's question is he our 3-and-D guy that we want to commit to? You're not signing a guy like that hoping they're going to do something with the ball because you got Kyrie and Luka. So Are they confident that he can remain a 3-and-D guy? Now, remember, he was not a great shooter coming out of college, so much so he shot 16% his rookie year, bumped that up to 36% his second year, and now he's 40%. But early on 2.8 attempts a game though, pro. So not a lot of attempts. Are the Mavs confident that he's a 7-8 3-point attempts a night 3-and-D guy to extend for? That's what I think they're probably weighing up, and probably arguably they have other guys that can fill his position currently on that roster that are kind of similar to him. They're bringing Dante Exum. That's what I think they're thinking about. So I think he has an opportunity to stay there, but I think they're gonna roll the dice and see how this season goes. And if his improvement goes from 9-3 to 13-4 with 40% 3-point shooting, I think he'll get his deal in the future.
Yeah, Rick Carlisle always taught me this in the NBA. You either have leverage or you don't. I don't think Josh Green right now has a lot of leverage. He is getting better. Now, they lost, the Mavericks lost their shooting coach, Peter Patton, to Chicago Bulls. He's a guy who's one of the best shooting coaches in the league next to Chip England. And I think that, losing him, hopefully he can continue to go forward. He's made some jumps in his game, and that's great. I just think that, like you said, he's got to show that he's going to be healthy. He's going to be a regular, everyday guy. I think it shows that their development team is doing a good job. I mean, having a guy that sort of had a little bit of a shaky start on this, and now getting to the point where you're averaging like 9-3, you've had some good games under your belt, you're getting better, you're going to have the minutes. It'll be interesting though, Bogues. I mean, they got Grant Williams in free agency, and then they got they got Hardy and Hardaway that will play, at the 2 and the 3 position coming off the bench. And Seth Curry's going to have to get some time too. So he's got to show that he can consistently, make shots, be that athletic guy that continue to play hard every night. And then when somebody's got to take a night off, if Irving sits or Doncic sits, being that guy that could, go from 9 points to 16, 17, make a couple of shots, play hard defensively, trust. And again, he's a restricted free agent. So if he gets offers they can match, and they'll do that. But, he just has to show that he's an everyday guy that could take his game to a little bit of another level. And that's the tough thing about the NBA, especially in these situations, man. You've got some decent young players and vets behind you that are going to play, that are going to be right at your nails, nipping at your toes to try to get time on the floor, take your time. So you got to make the best of your situation. So it'll be interesting.
Yep.
Cole Anthony, Bogues, Orlando Magic.
Yeah, I think this. If I'm the Magic, I probably wouldn't overpay to keep him. He fell out of the starting rotation, obviously, with Fultz and Suggs, playing the 1 and the 2. So, and now you're bringing in Joe Ingles, who at times will play some point forward. Where does that leave Cole Anthony? He still averaged 25.9. I think he was a good bench punch for him. He started the season before, started 65 games out of 65 when they were, obviously not very good, and was 16.3. Not great clips. He shot 40% that year when he averaged, or just under 40%. Last season, he was a bit better from the field at 45% and 36 from 3, averaged 13 a night, with five rebounds and 4 assists. Poor man's Trae Young, kind of, something along those lines, like a kind of a scorer, undersized scorer. Can you get away with playing those guys bulk minutes? I can see why they're probably waiting to see if he makes another step forward, because his numbers have been, really decent rookie year, made a jump, and then probably flatlined a little bit last season, pro.
Yeah, I think that I wouldn't really be in a rush if I'm Orlando right now. You got to figure out what you're going to do with Fultz going forward. Is he going to be your guy? Is he not? You got Suggs there. I'm not a huge fan of Suggs, but he's a decent player. They drafted him very high a couple years ago. He had some health problems last year. The thing for me, the guy that's going forward is going to, in my opinion, be their starting point guard, who is one of the underrated guys in the draft. Even though he went pretty high, was Anthony Black from Arkansas. He's a Dallas kid who's really, really good. A Sean Livingston, Josh Giddey type player who's got really good size. He could really, really pass, and he's got good instincts to play. So I think he's going to be really good going forward. So you've got the guys like Fultz and Suggs and Black right now on your roster. And also you said Ingles, playing a little, point forward, but you got all these point guards going forward. What are you going to do? I mean, to me with Anthony, in my opinion, you sign him to one of those like 3 years, 45, $15 million a year, be the backup, guy who could start a little bit here and there. But I think Black going forward, by not this All-Star break, by next All-Star break, in my opinion, he'll be a starting point guard. So again, no rush on Anthony. They can match any offer that's given to him. I don't think there's going to be a huge market for him, but I think one of those deals that, Brunson was going to sign with Dallas before they didn't do it. Remember that like 4 years, 60 or something like that. I could see Cole Anthony in a similar deal like that. But like I said, there's no really rush on it. All right, James Wiseman, Bogues.
Yeah, I think they just wait and see how he develops. I mean, he's only been there, a season, not even a season. He played 24 games last season for him. Started 22. He averaged 12.7 and 8 rebounds. So not horrible. Short sample size on a team that was towards the end of its season that were horrible. So, yeah, I don't know. We still don't know what he is or what is his one intangible asset that he brings. I mean, I think he's still trying to figure it out. I think he's still trying to figure out who he is as a player and all that kind of stuff. Doesn't really shoot the 3 ball. But look, he's got athleticism. He's got length. He can get up and down the floor. He's just raw. Needs to play. Do Detroit have that? They're still got to be patient for another year with him, I think, and they'll see how that plays out. And then, he's definitely not. I think even from his point of view, do you want to do your extension when your value is probably at your lowest right now? I think there's some value to be gained for him if he plays a little bit better.
Yeah, I agree. Last year for the whole year, 10-6, and I think that it's a great opportunity for him because there's going to be minutes for him. And sometimes you just don't get an opportunity. You're a really high draft pick, but there's no opportunity for minutes. You're on a really good team. Darko Milicic comes to mind, not for the whole bust thing, but, gets drafted number 2 to a team that just won a championship. And now you got a veteran coach that doesn't like rookies and you don't play. And, it's a learning curve just like there was with Darko. Same thing with Wiseman. I was never a Wiseman fan. I'm not a huge fan of him in college. I'm not a really fan of him in the NBA, but the NBA reality, there's minutes for him in Detroit. They're a young team. They've got a bunch of guys they drafted. They're trying to develop. Cunningham's coming off injury. Ivy needs to prove a lot, and continue his development. They've already got Bogdanovich. They just drafted this kid, Aussie Thompson, from the Overtime Elite. So they've got those guys. Then you've got like Jalen Duren and Isaiah Stewart and Marvin Bagley. You've got guys at the big man position that's going to be battling for Wiseman minutes. I think it's good because they'll play him. And I think that it's good for him also that they're not going to be good, that they're going to be better but not good. They're going to give him those minutes. There's going to be players behind him that are going to be competing. So I think it's a good deal for him. And like you said, maybe there is a jump in his development that he could have. A lot of times with those really high draft picks, when they get cut off to really slow starts, it's really hard for them to get back on track. This is going to be one of the few players that will actually have a chance to do that. It's going to be time and opportunity for him. So it'll be interesting. All right. So the last guy, Giannis, who didn't sign his extension, not a rookie extension or vet. He's eligible for it. He did speak to the media about it a little bit, Bogues, but hasn't signed it yet. Do you take anything from it, or what do you think?
I think wait and see approach for him. I think the season they had last year was definitely frustrating. They've brought in some reinforcements now, so the organization's on the front foot. We kind of both predicted that they have to do something. Damian's getting older, but they had to make a move to show, hey, we're serious. Well, they're number 3. Milwaukee's number 3 in salary right now, as of today in the league. And Giannis is still contracted for next season at $48 million, $45 this year, $48 next year. Player option at 51, which I don't think the player option is going to come into effect. I think that's when the extension is going to happen. He's going to sign. He's unrestricted too, right? So he can just walk at that point. Yeah. So I don't think it's a money thing for him. Obviously, most people that follow the game would know it's not a money thing. I think it's a timing thing, and just I want to see what you're bringing around me. Do we have a chance to win in a year or two? Is Dan going to be a bit older? Is Middleton going to be still banged up from his injuries? Lopez isn't getting any younger. Where's my roster going to be left? What am I going to be left with? And I think it's a pretty good strategy for him to see whether he's actually going to bounce or not, because you know, you look at some of these contracts. Lillard's basically contracted to 25, 26. Middleton is next season, and then a player option, which you'll most likely opt into, I believe. He's getting older.
And he's got 2 left. He's got 2 left as well. So, you know, he doesn't have to go. I just think he's extension eligible with it. He's got a player option 25, 26, Giannis, and he can go forward. So, you know, it's interesting.
I think he just he's waiting to see where the roster goes, and I think it's a smart move for Giannis. Obviously, Milwaukee would sign him tomorrow if he wanted to extend at the max number that he can get. And he probably will make more money in that, taking that risk. Now, you have the risk of injury, you have the risk of this, you have the risk of that. But Giannis knows that, you know, if he waits out, that number's going to be, you know, considering what Jaylen Brown got, that number's going to be a very, very big number to stay. So I think that the holdout, the longer the better, and he'll at least have some freedom if he doesn't feel like the organization is going in an upward direction. And it potentially might not. You know, they've got a lot of older guys on this team that are playing valuable parts. I mean, how old's Middleton? I need to check that. Just check Trent how old Middleton is.
Yeah, I got it right now, Bogues. Hold on. It's
Trent to check it.
Middleton's 31 years old.
31. So yeah, he's probably got 2 to 3 at a high level, and then he's gonna start phasing off. Lillard, you know, 34, right? Is that right? You got Lopez, you know, he's got to be mid-30s, mid to late 30s.
Lillard 33, Lopez 35.
Exactly. You know, so they're core guys in your group. These are core guys. How are they going to be? Crowder's older as well. Whether he plays huge minutes, who knows? But those 4 guys are your core guys. Obviously, Portis off the bench a bit younger, and Connaughton a bit younger. But that's what Giannis would be looking at. So no brainer for me. All right, let's get on to our Aussie Watch. Our last season's Aussie Watch MVP, Josh Giddey, no-brainer. See if someone can take him off that perch. Who knows, because he does put up numbers. But we'll start with Ben Simmons. We don't have to get too much into the nitty-gritty of what we've spoken about the last couple of seasons. But I think this is the most important year of his career by far. I think just getting his confidence back, and it seems like it's starting to come a little bit in preseason, but you can still see, you know, not as confident. Still, that confidence from the line is a big thing for him, which we've spoken about. My questions are: will he play more than 30 a night? You know, we saw him benched at numerous times last season, especially if they go to the hacker, whatever, late. Will he get to the 30-minute mark? Last season he wasn't. Will he be back on triple-double watch? Last season, 7, 6, and 6, 56% from the field, 43.9 from the free throw line, and 1.3 steals in a career low 42 games. Obviously injured, so a lot of questions there. Will he play over 30? And can he get back to the Simmons of old is what we'll be looking out for, bro.
Yeah, I mean, look, they're sort of in a weird spot. I mean, I think they're trying to hold on to hope to win a little bit, but you know, with him, I agree with you. I think it's the most important, you know, season of his career going forward to see where he's at. Obviously, he's talented enough to really play and really make a dent and really help them. I just think he has to battle through it. It's easier said than done when players are sort of not mentally strong to deal with adversity like he's really hasn't been yet in his career. It's really hard to get that, but he's got to understand that the sky's not falling. The guy's a talented player that could really impact the game, but he has to get past those nights where it's going to be ugly shooting the ball from the free throw line. But he's got to understand if he gets through that, he's going to be fine. You know, if he can get to like 68 to 72%, he doesn't have to get to 90% from the line. But if he can get to that, like anywhere in that 70s, late 60s to early 70s, you know, with all the other things that he brings to the table, he'll be fine. He just has to battle through those dark days. And he hasn't, because he never really had to deal with that before, he doesn't want to deal with that. All he has to do is get through it a little bit, and then he'll be fine. So, yeah, I'm expecting him to finish the year, even though I haven't really given him much hope for that, you know, in past talking about him. But I think he'll finish the year this year, and I think people will be a little bit pleasantly surprised about it. I don't think he's going to put up all-star numbers or anything, but I think he's going to be, you know, a factor for them, you know, in their team structure, trying to, you know, look, they got all these draft picks they got in the various deals that they made. So they're looking for the future, you know. So I think that he still could impact the game. He's got to man up.
Yep. I'll be interested to see his bounce back. Dyson Daniels, next one, solid rookie year. Wasn't a huge minute guy, had a bit of an injury stint throughout the mid-season. But great defender already. I think he's up there as being one of the better defenders, at least in his class. his three ball is going to be, does he play more factor, in my opinion. He was 3.8 points, 3.2 rebounds, 2.3 assists, 49% from the field, 31% from the three, played 17.7 minutes. He's actually played more minutes than I thought. But the three-point shot for him, I think, is the outlier. If he can get that up to 34, 35, 36 region, then you can play him a whole lot more. But he's a good defender in this league for a young guy, and I think he'll find minutes. But I think that three ball is going to be, what gets him more minutes, pro.
Yeah, I think that, look, I think everybody sort of liked what he brought to the table last year for sure. He brought a lot of toughness, a lot of energy, but you got to be able to shoot the ball. Like, being that guy that could play defense and, play hard and go up and down and make some plays and be tough, that's great. But, the only way you're going to really make it in this league is if you could shot make to a certain degree. You don't need to be a 45% three-point shooter to be on the floor, but you got to be somewhere in the mid-30s, lower to mid-30s, especially if he's trying to just make a little bit of a jump into what he's doing. I do like him. I liked him in the draft. I liked him when I was out in LA last year for pre-draft. I really liked what I saw out of the kid. I thought he handled himself well, but again, he's going to need to be able to impact the game, with his shot making. He really hasn't been able to do that yet. But I think he'll, the free throw shooting's got to improve for sure. And get that into the, to low to mid 70s. And then that 3-point shooting, just make that jump to 33, 34. Look, they've got plenty of talent. They've got guys in front of them. There's not a lot of pressure for him to perform. But coming off the bench, if he can up it to like 22, 23 minutes a game, and play behind the, Jones and Ingram, I think, I think he could be pretty good.
Yeah, definitely a high energy guy. So he'll find the floor. It's just a matter of how much he finds the floor throughout the season. Dante Exum returned from Europe. I think his growth and poise have shown, at least with the national team, from what I've watched. I caught a couple of EuroLeague games when he was over there, and different player from his first stint in the NBA. Not as sped up, not as panicky. It's just all kind of starting to figure things out. And I think that European stint for him has been immense for his basketball growth. A guy that, once again, he came in the league very raw, didn't play a lot of basketball at a high level, was playing high school league in Australia. For the most part, was his most competitive basketball that season before he went to the NBA. So it was always going to take him a couple of seasons, and I think Utah probably gave up on him a little bit early. He did have some injuries. They didn't know whether he was a 1 or a 2, but he's been good in Europe, and I'm looking forward to seeing how he goes and whether he can crack that rotation. Like you said, Green's there and a few other guys in his position that can take some minutes off each other. But I like just the way he's kind of grown as a basketball player, and I think he'll just fit in playing off guys like Luka and Kyrie. I think he'll fit him quite nicely.
Yeah, Bogues, the dangerous thing for him, and it just, you go over the past of the league and how the draft's gone. Those guys that are quote unquote busts, it's really hard for them to understand that, hey, look, you don't need to play to that standard. Ntilikina, Frank Ntilikina deals with that issue. Like early in his career, the Knicks didn't work, and then he bounced around Dallas. Now he's in Charlotte. He got hurt, unfortunately. But like with him, obviously there was such high expectation with Exum. This has been talked about before, no doubt about it. But like, there's a lot of competition in Dallas for minutes for guards. Obviously, Luka and Kyrie. Then you've got Hardy, Seth Curry. You got Josh Green. There's going to be a lot of combinations they're going to try to play with. I think all he has to bring is stability. I really love the story about going overseas and rekindling his career. All he has to do is be solid. Make an open shot. Play hard defensively, get in the paint, make a play, but he doesn't really have to be that guy. And I think throughout his career in Utah and whatnot, that I think that there was that pressure to do that. And look, it fell short of where people thought he was going to be. But right now, especially with his European and international experience last year or two, I think that he's really made really big strides in his development, maturity, ability to be a pro every day. And I think that like he could really help them because look, Hardy's still getting better, second year in the league. And there's going to be some time where, guys that'll be struggling. Luka's going to sit out. Kyrie might sit out. Something like that, where there's a combination of things. Guys will be hurt, banged up, maybe back to back, third game in 5 nights, and really need, they're going to ask him to play a little bit, extended minutes. And look, he's a vet. He's been through some things, and I think he'll be solid. He'll be a solid, end of year rotation player for them. And I think that, they'll be happy with what he brings.
Yeah, Josh Green, we don't have to get into too much because we did in the extension talk. He's 9.13 and 1.7 last season, 53% from the field, 40% from three. 3-and-D guy. I think that we don't need to get into that too much. Very similar to what we said. He'll crack the rotation depending on how his 3 ball's falling. But it's him and Dante are kind of similar positions. I mean, Dante does like carrying the ball a little bit more than Josh, but they're gonna, with the way the roster's constructed in Dallas, Luka and Kyrie are going to have the ball 90% of the time, so you got to play off them, and they're both fighting for those minutes. Josh Giddey, further growth with a better roster potentially. I could potentially see his points per game going down and his assists maybe going up. He was 16.6, 7.9 rebounds, and 6.2 assists. And I base that just on they got a deeper roster now a little bit with Chet getting healthy and whatnot, and some further growth of that roster. 48% from the field, 32% from 3 in 31 minutes per game. Another guy with 3 balls and outlier. He's going to play 30-plus minutes no matter what. His scoring could go up with a better clip from 3, but look, it's just not he's not going to be a mass 3-point shooter ever in his career, I don't believe. Even Jason Kidd really wasn't a mass 3-point shooter till late in his career, where he was basically the guy that people would dare to make him, especially late in games with Dallas, hit some big threes for them, but he does so many good things well. I look for some further growth from him defensively. I think he's got enough length and size to be a better defender than he is at times, and I think that's part of learning, being young and learning the NBA game, picking your spots. So I look to see him improve on that. But an exciting year for OKC as a whole and for Josh Giddey, but I think his assists have a chance to rise.
Yeah, I think he's going to be, I think he's going to move up the ranks, at the point guard position in the NBA. I think he's somewhere that could get into the top 10. I got him at 7. I really like his poise. I like the fact that he could pass the ball. In my opinion, they should put Alexander off the ball and put Giddey as their full-time point guard. I think I agree with you. Chet Holmgren is going to get a lot of play and a lot of possessions. Is going to find the ball in his hands. Just his skill set and his talent level. But I like what Giddey could bring. The one advantage that he's got over Jason Kidd, he's got Chip England as a shooting coach. Jason Kidd didn't really hire a shooting coach full time in my recollection until about halfway through his career at least. And I think that Giddey, will progressively get better. I'm with you. I don't think he'll be an elite 3-point shooter. It just doesn't work that way. I think you're either a shooter or you're not. You could get better, in bursts, but I think it's going to take time for him. But I really like his size, his vision. He could score in the post. He could cut off the ball. He could do a lot. The shooting's an issue. It's got to get better, and I think that, I think he just has to continue just to sort of settle into this thing. Remember, it's, he's only been in the league for a little bit. He hasn't really, this is his 3rd year. So he's got time. I think he's going to be very good.
And hopefully a playoff push, which will, further enhance the growth of that squad and Josh learn how to play in a playoff series and what it takes to get to first round, second round, and that whole grind usually has players bounce back even better the following season. All right, Joe Ingles, off an injury rehab season last season with Milwaukee. Didn't really play a whole lot early on because of the injury. Came back around January, February-ish. Look, not a great World Cup campaign for him, and he'll be the first to say so. I see him bouncing back this season, just having a full off season now, or the rest of the off season now to get his body right before camp. This young Orlando team needs shooting, so he's going to find, whether he handles the ball as much at the point forward position is yet to be seen. Can he still do that at a high clip, at a high minute rate? Who knows? But at a minimum, he's going to be a 3-and-D guy, a corner 3 guy. Probably can cause some problems sometimes for them defensively, guarding their second or third best player on the opposing teams, because he's got enough length and smarts. Obviously not the most athletic quick guy, but just knows how to play. Last season, 6.9 points, 2.8 rebounds, and 3.3 assists. on 43% from the field and 40 from three. And he actually played more minutes than I thought last season, pro, for Milwaukee towards the end of that season. It was 22.7 minutes coming off that off that knee injury. So yeah, I think he's gotta try to really come out with a focus to try and have a little bit of a bounce back, considering the injury. You know, a lot of people kind of forgotten about Joey a little bit, and then the World Cup campaign wasn't his best performance. I think he's got enough pride and motivation in him to come out and kickstart the year off good.
Yeah, Bogues, I expect a lot out of the Orlando Magic as a whole with him. I think he could really, really help them, and they could benefit from him. Look, they're a good team. They're going to be a much improved team on top of what they did last year, but they're still very young. Bonchero's young, Franz Wagner's young. Those guys are, even Wendell Carter is pretty young. So they need, and their backups are definitely young. So they need someone who's just going to stabilize them, that could, play in different types of lineups, could be tough, could pass the ball, could make an open shot. He's going to be solid. And being a pro's pro and being tough, there's a lot to be said there. And I think that having him in the roster in the second unit could really help there, just help stabilize some things, especially when those nights aren't going well, when you're playing a back-to-back or you're playing a really good team and those young guys are shitting their pants and they're just like, oh, fuck. Having a young guy, an older guy that's been around, that's been through these wars and could, settle you down. He's not LeBron James by any stretch, but he's a guy that could really just be solid and give them that presence they need.
Yeah, I agree. So we're hoping Joey has a good year. Jock Landale, 6.6 points and 4 rebounds with an assist, 53% from the field and 25% from three last season. He's gone into the somewhat dumpster fire of the Houston Rockets with everything going on there, but they'll be a somewhat better team, probably not wins and losses wise, but I think they'll play with a certain system and they'll be much more disciplined. He shot the ball well in the preseason, pro, shooting it better from three, obviously on a small sample size, a bit more aerodynamic with the shaved head, but he'll find minutes just from his effort and energy, and I'm looking to see the growth for him, much like the other guys, is how his three-point shot goes. From when I've spoken to him, they've encouraged him to continue to keep shooting the ball from three, and they like the way he shot it in preseason and during camp. So if he can knock down one or two of those a game with the way he runs the floor and get some cheap buckets on rolls, I can see his numbers going up from 6.6 and 4, pro.
Yeah, I think what Jock brings to the table for them is somebody who's really good defensively in pick and roll. I think with, Sengun is really good, obviously a post scorer, somebody who's skilled, he's smart, but I think that he's a little lumbering defensively. He doesn't bring the athleticism that Jock brings, the energy Jock brings. So I think playing off each other, with Jock being the backup to Sengun, I think it's good because Sengun gives you one look, Jock gives you another. Look, they're not going to be very good this year. They're improved, obviously, with Van Vliet, signing Van Vliet and Brooks, but they're going to need guys that solidify them in the second unit, guys that with high basketball IQs, and that's what Jock brings, somebody who's solid defensively. I think if he could really focus in on defending without fouling, be that roll threat, being a short roll threat that could shoot floaters, that little free throw line jumper, catch on a short roll, make a play for somebody else. Be able to make the shot consistent. I agree with you. The 3-point shot has to get better. It will get better. I feel as though, watching him in the preseason, he's a little bit more comfortable when he catches the ball from the perimeter. I think they're encouraging him to shoot where they probably weren't encouraging him in Phoenix. If I had to guess, they'd probably rather him rolling to the rim or passing the ball and setting under the screen and whatnot. I think he's going to help them. Like I said, they're not going to be very good, but I think that he gives them a solid pro, a guy that you could really rely on a daily basis. And in there's certain situations, I would play him extended minutes over Sengun and some type of Sengun. I forgot how you pronounce his name, but like how in some situations where, you'll get hurt defensively without him on the floor because I think he's just smart. So I think I really like his ability to be solid. Here's a guy who I didn't think he was going to make the first cut of the Olympic team, by the way, 2 years ago. So what the fuck do I know?
Yep, it's come a long way. All right, next one, Patty Mills, 6-1-1 last season, 41% from the field, 36% from three. His lowest minutes in over a decade pro last season for Paddy Mills, 14.2 minutes. Fell out of the rotation there pretty drastically in Brooklyn. He's now going to Atlanta. Hasn't really played a lot in the preseason. I don't like his chances of even scraping that 14-minute mark that he got last season in Brooklyn. But look, a guy that you can have come off the bench and be a firecracker, can really get it going, knocks down 2 or 3 quick threes, can get you back in a game. So a good bench energy guy. But it just seems like age is starting to catch up to Paddy like it does with all of us. He's 35 years, just turned 35 not long ago. At that age is at the guard spot, it's hard to keep up with some of these young guards. And I think it's mainly the defensive end where Paddy's going to have his struggles. I think he still shoots the ball at a great clip and he'll find his spots. But on that defensive end, speed has gone a little bit and defensive intensity goes a little bit as you get older. So I'd be interested to see where he fits in with Quinn Snyder in Atlanta.
Yeah, I just think he's going to be one of those guys that are just always going to be ready. I don't think he's going to play a lot. I don't think there's going to be much of a spot for him, in my opinion, unless there's some injuries. Look, you got Trae Young and DeJounte Murray in your first unit. Then you drafted a rookie point guard, Kobe Bumpkin from Michigan, right? He's going to play. You got Bogdanovich, who's going to play a ton of minutes, who's a big part of their team. So after that, I think that now you're talking about, okay, can Paddy help us? Look, if Bumpkin goes down with an ankle injury, Bogdanovich has had some health issues in the past. If one of your guards go down and then you need him, he's like one of those guys where, you're down 19 to Phoenix and, nothing's fucking working on a back-to-back or third game in 5 nights or fifth game in 7 nights. And you're like, all right, fucking Paddy, come on, man, give us something. And he's going to be ready. He's going to be one of those guys you never have to worry about. Age has definitely taken his toll. He's definitely diminished his skill level for sure. I mean, still could be a pro, still be an NBA player, still could give you every few nights, could give you a night that he could, go 4 for 5 from the field, make 3 threes, dish out a couple of assists and just play hard and be that spark plug for you. But I don't expect him to have a really big role consistently for them. Although I could see some nights where, he really helps them when they need it, but I just don't think there's the minutes for him. There's just too many young players that are ahead of him in the depth chart.
Especially their two main guards. And Quinn does play his starters big minutes generally. Historically, he does anyway. And you got Young and Murray playing those positions. So not a lot of minutes left over. Matisse, viable, 7.3, 5 and 1.4. No, sorry, 7 points, 3.5 rebounds, 1.4 assists, 1.7 steals. 43% from the field, 38.8 from 3. He kind of revitalized himself after that trade from Philly where he was not really playing, fell out of the rotation, went to Portland, shot the ball well, was really good for him defensively. Unfortunately, he's going to be playing for one of the worst teams in the league. So I see some minutes there for him, and it'll just be a matter of whether he can continue to try and get better and keep that 3-point clip around where it was last season where he finished.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of Matisse for sure. And I think that he, like you said, he's on a really bad team. I mean, it's funny they're bad, but they've got talent. They've got, with Simons and Henderson and, DeAndre Ayton, they still got Jeremy Grant. If Robert Williams is going to be healthy, they still got him. So they got some guys that are interesting. Matisse just has to really continue to get better. Just perimeter offensively. Can't be just a defensive guy, a non-scoring threat. He's going to have to be that guy that could give you like 10 to 11 points a night. He only played 17 minutes a game last year. It was a little bit different for him, but I think that, there are minutes for him now. I think they're not done making moves. I think Jeremy Grant's going to be on the move. If I had to guess, they're going to put a lot of minutes into Scoot Henderson. They just drafted, and Simons and Sharp. I think those guys from the wing are guys that are going to play. And don't forget, they got Malcolm Brogdon, more probably point guard, combo guard deal. But I think there's still some growth in Thibault's game that could happen. He just has to continue to get the reps and continue to get chances and continue to have a coaching staff that encourages him to do well. So, I think he just signed a new deal last year, if I'm not mistaken, this past summer. I think he's signed for about $32 million, if I'm not mistaken, $33 million. So, look, he'll be there, be in the league. He'll have a chance. He's a really good perimeter defender, probably good enough to be an all defensive team candidate if he gets enough minutes. So it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, I agree. I'm looking forward to seeing how he continues on. And like I said, he finished Portland the season last year with Portland really well, so hopefully he can continue that form. Xavier Cooks, 3.8 and 3.8, 60% from the field, 40% from the free throw line. Didn't really play a whole lot last season. Came towards the tail end of that after the Kings Championship. The big question mark for him is, will he stick on the roster? That can go either way. Still some final waves to go for the Wizards, but on the depth chart, he's stuck behind a fair bit of players. Avdia, who they just signed to an extension. Gallinari's in that rotation for him. Kuzma's starting at the 4. Then you got Gafford at the 5 with Taj Gibson and Mike Muscala. He's, and even Patrick Baldwin Jr. is at the 4 above him. So not a lot of minutes there. Roster spot's going to be the question, Pro, whether he sticks and does not get waived in the next couple of weeks. We hope to see him there, but that's the question mark with Xavier.
Definitely an uphill battle. I mean, even with the team that's not really trying to win. I mean, how old is he? He's
27,
a little up there, right?
Yeah,
he's not
exactly
exactly young, correct? Yeah, so, he's not eligible to become a two-way, I don't think. So it's like keeping him on the roster is tough these days, especially, when you have your two-way players and your exhibit 10s and things like that. You don't know, you usually want to get some of those spots at the end of your bench for those younger guys. So it'll be interesting to see what happens going forward with, where they see him. It doesn't look great, if I had to guess, but you never know. Somebody can get hurt or, move him up the rotation a little bit, but I don't really have a lot of faith there.
Yeah, one of those 1+1+1+1+1 Spurs type deals that are all team options. So they can waive him and it won't really cost them too much. I know there were some other teams interested in Xavier at the time of his signing with Washington. So we'll see if that comes up again, but hopefully he's on the roster and we don't have to talk about it. And as of today, Jack White and Duop Reith both waived. So where they end up, who knows? I know there's some teams in the NBL circling for a big man right now. Duop Reith would be a great candidate. I know his asking price at one point was, from my knowledge, very, very high. So we'll see that. And then Jack White, whether he stays in the G League and tries to work his way back in. I thought he really improved last season. He was pretty good for the national team. So we'll see where those two go, Pro. Picks for the NBA awards. We're just going to go through these. We don't need to explain them. But Eastern Conference champions, Pro, who do you have?
I'm going to have the Boston Celtics.
Yep, cosign. West?
The West, I'm going to go... Again, I'm going to go with the I'm going to go with Phoenix Suns. I'm sorry.
Damn, same. I'm Phoenix Suns. Championship.
Oh, shit. I should have said Denver then.
Championship. It's only 1 or 2, Pro. Who's winning the championship?
I'm sorry. Apologize. Didn't hear you on that one. I'm going to go with the Phoenix Suns championship.
I'm going to go with the Phoenix Suns. MVP for you?
Jesus. Luka Doncic, which I think you got Luka as well. Jesus Christ.
We didn't compare notes. All right, most improved player. Surely we're different on this one.
Oh man, who do you have, Bogues?
I have Anthony Simons. Now he did average 21 last season, so that's what's probably going to hurt me. Usually you see guys that are averaging 9 or 10 get the MIP because they jump up to 20, but I think his usage is going to be huge on Portland, so I'm basing it on that.
Okay, so I'm not a huge fan of this guy. But I think he has a chance to put up huge numbers. Huge numbers for him will be 2 and 2. But no, Jordan Poole. Now, I don't even know if he's eligible because he averaged 20 a game last year. But being so bad in Washington.
He's going to get him up.
He's got a chance to put up like 30 a game. And by the way, I did have Simons. I had to change it within 2.2 seconds, so I don't want to fuck with it. Jordan Poole, I'm going to pick because they're going to be so bad, Bogues. It's going to be like Jordan. It's going to be like Dumb and Dumber. Fucking, it's going to be Jordan Poole. They're going to be riding that scooter together. Fucking Jordan Poole and Kyle Kuzma. It's just they're going to be fucking attached to the hip, jacking up shots, and they're not going to win games. I can't see them winning. Yeah, I think they're going to be historically bad for this year, and they're not really trying to win anyway. So I'm going to go with Jordan Poole just because they're so bad. And even though he had a good playoff when they won the championship in Golden State, he didn't really have great years there where it's like, wow, like all-star level, And I hate the all-stars as we know, but I think he'll have a chance for that. So I'm going to say Jordan Poole.
Okay, interesting one, yeah, but he's definitely going to get him up. Defensive Player of the Year.
Who do you got, Bogues?
Victor.
I'm
going with a flyer. Man, he's what he does at the defensive end is insane, man. Like his length and I think they're going to play in 30 plus for a rookie. Like he's going to play a lot of minutes. So I think, analytically he's going to be up there in the voting, I think.
Do you think he's going to play like enough games, all that? You think that's all going to be good?
You're going to shut him down late season? Maybe. He is 65, right? Maybe that hurts him. But I just think, as a rookie, it's his timing. He just knows how to play. You can see he's got a hot. Usually, these guys that have this kind of athleticism and length, they can get away with not having the best basketball IQ. His IQ's up there, man. I watch a few of their games, and not just all the highlight blocks you see, but just watching him spatially. Yeah. He's aware defensively. He just knows how to play. So it's a flyer. Like he's obviously not the favorite, nowhere near the favorite, but I just like, you know what? I'm going to put him out there because I think analytically the data's going to say when he's on the floor, blah, 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 and I think they're going to be really good defensively with him on the floor.
Bogues, he's so good. I mean, I had my sort of reservations about him, just sort of, I didn't go off the summer league. I could care less. Summer league's useless to me, but watching. Like I just thought the shooting might be an issue. I thought the health still could be an issue. But watching his poise on the floor, that like besides the athleticism and all the other stuff, he just seems like he's poised. He's already like a vet in some ways. And there's going to be some ups and downs, but man, defensively, he's smart. And, some of the things that he does. And, if he learns consistently about verticality and not getting block shots all the time and just like defending without fouling, if he just watches film of fucking Brook Lopez over and over and over and over again, how he protects the rim on top of his athletic gifts, I think the fucking, sky's the limit for him. I agree. I didn't have him. I had Bam Adebayo. I think Bam's I'm a huge Bam fan. It was either him or Lopez. I just really like him. I think for them to be good, especially with what they lost in free agency, he's going to have to step his game up tremendously. Not that he hasn't already, but he's going to have to do a lot. And I think that if, defensively, they don't have a lot of great players defensively besides him and Butler. Butler guards and things, but he's going to have to really protect the rim and do some outstanding things for them to even come close to doing what they did last year. So that's what I'm going to say. I'm going to say Bam.
Okay, fair enough. Sixth man, who you got?
I don't know, Bogues. I'll go with Jordan Clarkson again. He's usually the,
I'm going to
spearheads things.
I'm going to go CP3 if he comes off the bench. So I think CP3 will win it if he comes off the bench. If he's starting and not eligible, I'm going to go Norman Powell, the Clippers. I think get some buckets off the bench. I don't think Utah will be good enough for Jordan to be in the running. I think Utah's going to be pretty
You're not
bad.
going to go with Kai Jones?
For who? The Mongolian Sea Dragons?
Yes. No. Absolutely.
No,
the Guangdong Tigers?
No, that's my rookie of the year. Do we even have to talk about this one? That's pretty simple.
Yeah.
Victor, yeah. Coach of the year.
Ooh, coach of the year. I'm going to go with Joey Mazzulla from the Boston Celtics.
Okay. So they're going to win a chip then, that means? So they're going to be, based on our
at
picks,
least
in the
damn
finals.
Close, yeah.
Yeah, okay. I'm going to go Taylor Jenkins because he's going to have to coach his ass off for them with everything they're dealing with. So I think if they can be 500 by the time Morant comes back and actually make a push, that's an impressive coaching feat in my opinion. So I'm going to give him the benefit that he's going to do it. And now with no big men, he's up against it. So
you got no center. Oh my God!
You got
NBA
guys
no
out 25 games.
It's crazy.
That's what I'm saying. If they're 500 by the time Morant comes back and they make a top 6 playoff push, coach of the year for me. So got to go to him.
Yeah, and you don't even know what Morant's going to do when he gets back. I mean, that could be worse. So, man, that's rough. That's rough.
All right, let us know how we went on our picks. I'm sure we'll get some more grief or pub or not for that, but. Moving on to NBL stuff, let's just plug Dabble real quick, the social betting experience. We can follow anyone online, from your best mate to me, Andrew Bogut, all one word. Give me a follow, download Dabble at the App Store, copy bets, jump into the banner channel, go backwards and forwards with some like-minded punters or not so like-minded and tell them how you feel about their bets. Dabble socially and gamble responsibly. All right, the NBL stuff, bro. The Tasmania Jack Jumpers, they're Scott Roth. I've had enough of the underdog tag for them. They are the championship favourites. They are the championship favourites. I'm sick of all the underdog crap. They are a well-constructed roster. They're well-coached. They just smacked Sydney on our home floor yesterday. But the underdog Cinderella stuff needs to go out the window. They're the championship favourites. I think it's theirs to lose at the moment, the way they're playing. Are they picking too early? Who knows? But they're playing really good basketball. Roth just got them humming. You know, Sydney love to run, high pace, high offense, high paced, high octane offense. They slowed us down a lot, made it really grindy, and scored the ball. Crawford was huge for him. Milton Doyle was big for him again, and they just all know their roles and play well together. So I've enjoyed watching them, and I know I give Tasmanians a lot of crap on socials. It's all part of the fun, but they've been really good. Melbourne United go 2-0. They beat Illawarra and a tough New Zealand team. So New Zealand went on that NBA 2-game trip, and it's funny, you always see these poor teams come back and they've had a long flight and they just always end up losing a close game. New Zealand losing a close game to Melbourne, probably win that if they had a bit more rest. Adelaide gets smacked by Southeast Melbourne and then get over Perth at home. Big win for them. Perth struggling a little bit. All the Red Army out there, the feral fans out west here, and we compare them to Alabama Pro. They're struggling. Just kidding, Perth fans. They're struggling. They're losing their minds. They're wanting the coach fire. They're wanting a new owner. They're wanting this. They're wanting that. They just can't fathom not being able to have a couple of seasons where they're not winning. So that's been interesting to see how they've handled that. Southeast Melbourne go 2-0 against Illawarra and Brisbane. Brisbane, I hate to say it, but they're looking like the Brisbane of old. They do not look good. It looks really discombobulated, albeit Aaron Baines is out for 5 games. But they still should look more competitive than they currently do. They're not looking good the last game or two. And finally, just to discuss, DJ Vasiljevic has signed with the Adelaide 36ers Pro. So he was, people that aren't aware of how this all goes down, he was contracted to the Sydney Kings from last season after the championship. He had a year deal left after the championship run. He came to us and said, "Look, I want to exercise. I've got some NBA aspirations. I want to give it a try. If not, potentially look at Europe." And we were like, "Well, you're contracted with us, Right. So I ended up negotiating that. Look, we'll release you from your contract for a buyout fee, and then you can go and do whatever you want. If you're signing in the NBA or Europe, we're not releasing you to sign anywhere else in the NBL, because obviously you could go to a team that we're competing with for championship, New Zealand and whatever. We've got your rights here." So, no worries, does all that. Goes over to the US, signs an Exhibit 10 contract. Don't know if he understood the full ramifications of what that contract was, but basically the Wizards would cut you from their NBA roster and then bring you back. And then you stay on for, I think, 2 months, and then Exhibit 10 kicks in, you get some more money. I don't know the exact nuances to that extent, but that's pretty much how it goes.
Yeah, the Exhibit 10 is usually 50 grand. You get 50 grand guaranteed. You get cut usually the first day of training camp or the last cut. They're going to cut you. You know that. The only reason why they do that is to get a look at you in training camp and then get your rights to their D-League team. So now their D-League has their rights. So instead of trying to acquire players through the draft in the D-League, they have their own draft and whatnot. The team signs the Exhibit 10, gives you 50. You make 50 with the D-League team. It's basically a hush-hush deal that you're going to go the whole year, then they're probably not going to cut you. So you're going to end up making 100 grand. You're going to be with the G-League team. You'd have a chance for a call-ups, yeah. Because they see you in training camp and know you. But that's usually what an Exhibit 10 contract is.
But anyway, that's exactly what happened. I'm not sure if DJ realized that. He was frustrated by being cut. Which was always going to happen. So I'm not sure what his agent was doing. Got on a plane the next day, flew back to Australia, spoke to some people with the Wizards, and they were not too happy about it. They were pretty disappointed with just basically getting a message saying, I'm out. And they're like, "Well, it was an Exhibit 10 deal. Did your agent not tell you this is how it goes?" I think DJ really thought that he had a chance for that roster spot on the Wizards, which is sad. But I'm just assuming the agent didn't relay it properly. Anyway. Yeah. You fast forward, mid last week, we get 2 weeks ago actually, the Kings get a message from DJ and his representatives that, "Hey, DJ wants to come back to the NBL." So we're like, "Oh, okay. Well, we have we technically have his rights if he comes back to the NBL because that contract that he signed and we released him from, the way it works is we can bring him in for that contract, first right of refusal, right? We had heard he already flew to Adelaide and was already working out there. So we get a call saying, hey, you need to decide whether you want to keep him on that deal. And we're like, whoa, like you've just let us know. It was like a Wednesday. And he wanted to play on that weekend. And we're like, well, we can't just give you a decision overnight. If we bring you in, we've got cap ramifications. We have to cut someone. We're 3-1 right now. We're doing well. So we had a call scheduled for that following Monday with the ownership group. And, people were like, well, why couldn't you release him straight away? Well, we couldn't do it that quickly. But the reason why I'm discussing this, that's how it went down. I know DJ was a little frustrated with the process because he wanted to play that weekend. We ended up releasing him, I think, on the Tuesday. But the reason why I bring this up is this is a potential loophole, bro, that other teams could engage in potentially. Doesn't happen a lot, but there's nothing to stop a team, we see a player we like on Team X, the off-season's coming, we say, hey, get out of your contract and say you want to go to Summer League or Europe, you don't want to play in the NBL anymore, you want to release, you'll pay 20 grand buyout, whatever it is, we'll fix you up for that 20 grand down the line, whatever it is, and then you're, come back 2 weeks, 3 weeks into the NBL season, once your team already has their roster set, they probably won't be able to sign you. So, the issue in Australia is as a restraint of trade where, in the NBA, it'd just be a holdout, right? Like even in Europe, they'd just be like, well, we've got your rights. You got to come play with us or blah, 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 blah. In Australia, we can't hold out. And we were kind of disadvantaged to an extent because we didn't have a roster spot. And, we weren't waiting for DJ to come back because we believed that he was going to stay over in the NBA. So just a little loophole in the NBL that I'm not sure how you fix it or you clean it up, but it could be used by some nasty teams in the future. And even I think CJ Bruton, the head coach of this is a good one, pro like this, the head coach of the Adelaide 36ers, back in his playing days, he can't remember what team he was with. It might have been Brisbane, but he said, "Hey, can you guys release me from my contract? I want to go and sign overseas." And the NBL team was like, "Well, yeah, so you're not staying in Australia?" And he's like, "No, I want to go sign overseas." They agreed to it, and he signed with the New Zealand Breakers. So it's technically overseas, but it's in the same. It was great. It was awesome. It went something like that. History rings true, but I'm pretty sure it was something along those lines. It was really controversial at the time. Maybe it was the Kings. I'm not sure who he was with, but it was hilarious because I was laughing my ass off. Technically, he didn't lie. He said he's signing overseas, but I just hope the NBL and the Players Association figure out that hopefully. And I'm not DJ didn't use this as a loophole. He genuinely went over there for the right reasons and whatnot. But my point is, in the future, someone could potentially use this in the wrong way and side negotiate a deal and just say, we'll pay a buyout, just do it, and then we'll bring you back 3 weeks in the season.
What I would do, Bogues, on that, and again, I don't know how you could word these contracts and whatnot. If you're going to do a buyout, I would do the buyout in condition if you're going to go to, say, the G League to do that, to do the Exhibit 10 or whatnot. Say, okay, we'll let you out, but you can't come back to the NBL for 12 months. Mm-hmm.
That becomes a restraint of trade with our actual employment law in Australia. That's where it's a problem. Outside of that's a problem in Australia. The NBA has a CBA, and we have a CBA as well. But there's going to be these smart ass lawyers that try to circumnavigate your CBA and argue in court. Well, is your CBA exempt from state and federal law? Whereas in the NBA, it's like, well, you get paid millions of dollars. You don't have to sign the contract. Should be the same thing here, even though the money's smaller. But that's right. What the NBL is afraid of, and clubs are. Like, you could just have some smart ass lawyers saying, well, my client's got a job ready to go. You don't want to bring him in. You can't ban him for 12 months for your country because circumstances have brought him back. That's the issue.
Right. And again, I'm not a lawyer, not anything close to it. But what I would say is like, look, he's got a perfectly good job here. He's choosing to leave. It's sort of like... Yeah,
exactly. 100%. Like I totally agree. You've made that decision. Yeah. We contracted you. We built our roster thinking that you were on our books. Like, so you got to take that into fact. The club is actually affected, and we're not crying like we're, poor us. But the reality is, when you construct a roster of a player as valuable as DJ, one of the best Australian shooters you can get in the NBL, you construct your roster accordingly. So now all of a sudden take that piece out, we're like, oh shit, maybe we wouldn't have signed that guy for that much now. Maybe we wouldn't have signed a guy that's a really good defender that can, like all that kind of stuff. And it's kind of a domino effect. But I agree with you. If you say, hey, I'm going overseas, I want out, and you're not playing in the NBL that next season, no problem, go for it. But the fact that he come back, had no other options, and we weren't going to hold out and say, oh, we'll try to fight you and say you shouldn't play this, that. We were like, we don't have a roster spot for you. We don't want to waive anyone. You're free to go.
Bogues, I'm sorry, I lost you in the beginning of the story. Was he yours originally, or was he with somebody else originally before he did the Exhibit 10?
No, he was ours. So after the year we won the championship, I won our second championship, he came to us and said, hey, I want out of my contract to go and explore NBA/Europe. And we said, at first we're like, well, okay, how's that going to work? That we negotiated that there's going to be a buyout pay to get out of his contract. And then he'd go overseas, saying, we basically said what you said, you can't, no, it's not an NBL out, it's a Europe/NBA out, and then come back to NBL, and even though we specifically said, no, you can't go to another NBL team, we still can't stop it. So then we come back, and then they've said, hey, that contract you had him on for a couple $100,000, whatever it is, you can still have him for that, but our roster's full. We have to cut guys, and we're winning, right? So it's like, if we bring you in, our cap's going to go even further over, we're going to be in the tax. So there's a lot of ramifications. It wasn't as easy as, oh yeah, DJ's back, he was a championship winner, let's just bring him back at all costs. We already built our roster thinking that he was gone. Now, if we knew that was going to happen, we maybe keep a roster spot, keep some funds on the side to make sure we got money to cover it and keep us under the cap. But my point is the loophole thing. I think that teams can look at this and potentially do some shady business behind closed doors. You just want to make sure that the NBL's across that and the Players Association, which you don't want that to happen.
And he's got to handle himself better too as a pro. It just seems like not just the Sydney Kings thing, but when he just he wanted out. Look, chasing an NBA dream, I get it. Wasn't informed about what the Exhibit 10 really was, and then he leaves the Wizards deal and just says, "I'm gone." Didn't handle that well. There's a professionalism deal here too. You got to treat people more professionally, keep them in the loop of what you're doing, communicate with them. You can't just have what you want all the time and just be able to get out of your deal. Sometimes you're lucky enough our team will let you out of a deal, but just leaving a situation and then working out with another team before the whole deal was settled with you guys when he came back. Look, there's a professionalism aspect to being a guy that gets paid to play basketball or do anything else. You got to handle yourself with some class. And I mean, without knowing the situation, just from the story that you told, it just seems like, he didn't do that in the last couple of times, the last couple of teams that he was with.
Yeah, and especially in the NBA, it's going to be very hard for him to get his foot back in if he does want to go back there in the future, because it's going to be through that route. It's going to be Summer League / camp invite / G League. A team's going to be like, hey, this is a guy that just, left. And, I think his agent's got a lot to blame for it. But that's just a backstory for all the fans, that the whole process of how this all worked out and went. And it was a horrible situation for both sides, because we're trying to figure out whether we have room, what can we do? And then we're like, no, we're going to keep our roster. And then DJ's saying, I want to play this weekend. And we're like, well, it's not we can't rush this process for you to play in Adelaide. And ended up getting done that following week, and he's playing pretty decent. He's getting them up there at Adelaide, and just one of those things that is the bad side of business. Fact or fake news? What do you got this week?
I got one, Bogues.
Beautiful.
Will somebody dethrone Josh Giddey this year and the Aussie Player of the Week?
No. Fake news. No one's dethroning Josh Giddey. I think his numbers are just, he's almost he's not a triple-double, but he's...
Just one time. Oh,
no, he got dethroned one time. We gave, it might have been a sympathy dethroning, but Josh Green got him 1 week, I think, when he had that week where he was shooting the shit out of the ball from 3. I think Ben Simmons is your best chance of dethroning him for a week or two.
Yes.
Out of everyone on this roster.
Okay, so outside of the tanking March 15th on to the end of the regular season, from now until March 15th, will there be Josh Giddey will run through like a hot knife through butter the whole Aussie Player of the Week Rogue Bogues award. Will
Fake
he?
news.
Will he?
I'm going to
sweep across?
give Ben Simmons the benefit. He's going to get 1 week. Ben Simmons, surely he's going to get 1 week for us. He's healthy, and he might have a week where he's 10, 9 and 8, or 10, 10 and 10. Has a triple double week in 2 or 3 games. So I think Ben. I got faith in you, man. Come on. But I think he's the best bet. He's the best bet. There might be an outlier. Joey might have I just don't see Joey or having 3 or 4 games in a week at a high clip, right?
Yeah.
I think Joey can definitely have a 20-point game with 10 assists every now and then, but just consistently over a week, probably not. Josh Green, same thing. He might have a hot week, but I think Ben Simmons is the best bet to do. I'm going to go fake news. Josh Giddey's not going to run the field this season.
I go fake news too. I think Ben's going to win it at least once. I think he's going to get into a groove. So that's where I see it.
In Ben, we trust. All right, pro. Thank you. Another week in the books. We'll see you all next week, and let us know on our crazy picks for all the awards and teams, and give us some shit on socials. And I'm sure Mystic Mike will come up with some new stuff next week.
Hopefully he does, man. Hopefully. And you know what? There's not enough shit talking. Last year, it seemed like there's a lot more shit talking on social media. You know me, I answer everything. So, I mean, I'm looking for somebody to,
it's getting there.
To get a little
it's
creative.
Getting there.
Yeah.
I'm definitely seeing it. I comment on, you got to get on the Instagram. The Instagram's starting to pop off a little bit more than Twitter now. So that's where all the comments
I'll start to do that.
Because they can see your beautiful face as you're talking shit.
Yeah, hopefully not, man. I'm like fucking Medusa. So hopefully.
Till next week. See you, man.
See you guys.